Greetings, fellow humans. Welcome to the discussion table. My name is Sean on the Milwaukee, Wisconsin side of the table. On the Columbus, Ohio side, we've got Alex Dollenmayer. Alex, who are we and what are we doing here?
We are an indie pop band called Oh Geeez, Not Again, and we are here to review the new 21 Pilots album, Clancy, as big fans of 21 Pilots.
Yeah. You know, this is a big deal for us because I would say more than just being big fans of 21 Pilots, we met each other because of 21 Pilots.
Right.
We met in a roundabout way. Our audio and mix engineer, Nick Cesars from Vinyl Theater, because of 21 Pilots. And it's been a dream to get to work with him. Myself, I started getting more into music production and playing shows live because of Tyler Joseph and being inspired by what he did. And my voice as a producer and as a songwriter is so indebted to him. So when 21 Pilots puts out something, we take notice because I would say that almost more than any other band, they are one of our biggest inspirations and influences.
Definitely. And I would just say on that, Josh Dunn, for me as a drummer, has been one of the biggest influences for me personally, not just his playing style on records, but definitely in the live shows as well.
Absolutely. So going into this record, though, you know, I'm a little nervous to talk with you about this because going into this record, we were feeling some type of way about it, just the direction that it was going and the way it was being marketed. And so overall, going into Clancy, having heard the singles, having seen the direction they were going, what were your expectations with this album?
So I was very confused. I will preface that I am a huge fan and defender of Scaled and Icy. I think I'm the biggest fan of Scaled and Icy. And so to me...
That's actually true, Alex. You know, Alex, there's one other person who might be a bigger fan of Scaled and Icy than you, and that's me.
Okay.
We should probably actually head this off right away because we are not traditional 21 Pilots fans. As much as we love the band, I think we appreciate a different side of their music than most fans do. We think Trench is good. It's good. It's got some good songs on it. But Scaled and Icy, the pop stuff, we love that. We love it when they get more into that side of themselves because I think they're really good at it. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of music that we really love from them.
I think with Scaled and Icy, I just love the songs so much. Saturday always gets stuck in my head. Good Day is probably my favorite 21 Pilots opener. And so going into this whole Welcome Back to Trench thing with Overcompensate, and they released the 4-minute I Am Clancy video. I think I can speak for both of us in that we are not super captivated by the lore. I thought that it was a really interesting mechanic for world building in Trench, and I think that
definitely
album does a great job at encapsulating certain themes within that story. But I had this weird feeling because they were putting out these singles, and leading up to it, it was very obvious this is the finale. This is the conclusion to the story we've been telling for 10 plus years, which do I really think Vessel was a part of the story? Not necessarily, but
it's debatable. It's debatable.
So it was interesting because I think the singles gave us mixed signals and...
Really? Truly?
Yeah, and... I don't want to say too much about how that applies to the rest of the album. We will get into that. But I think both of us felt a little, is this really a Trench sequel or is this an expansion on that? I thought that Scaled and Icy was supposed to be this sidestep, but this also sounds like a sidestep to what you were doing. So yeah, I was just a little concerned and confused going into it.
Definitely a lot of questions and some hesitancy because it was like, I want to like this record. It's 21 Pilots. Of course I want to like this record. But let's start off. So it's helpful that the singles all came out pretty much in the order that they're featured on the record. So to start off with the first song and the first single, Overcompensate. When this song dropped back in February, what were your thoughts?
I immediately was drawn to the production. I think this is the by a long shot, most obvious Paul Meany, Tyler Joseph collaboration. This is the Trench sound that I think most people would expect. And I can't lie, when I heard that intro and it segues into the Welcome Back to Trench and the drums really hit hard. This is my favorite drum part on all of the album. And the music video was super interesting and obviously tied in heavily with the lore and all that. I think at the time, and still to this day, I wish that the song itself grabbed me a little bit more. I find it sort of to be an odd choice as a single. I understand it as a reintroduction, but I wish this was just an album intro because I think it serves its purpose as that beautifully. But I feel like it introduces an album that we didn't get. But I can only say that in retrospect. So
that's true.
At the time when it was a single, I was like, dang, I wish we didn't hear this early. I wish this was the opener. I could hear it for the first time that way, because it just wasn't a song that I was returning to that consistently on its own.
Sure. I was going to go off of what you said there about how this seems kind of like a weird choice to lead off this album. Now that we've heard it in full, I'm going to return to this word baffling a lot when talking about this record, because there are certain choices that were made in the assembling of this record and in the individual songs that I just cannot wrap my head around. And one of them is leading off the album in this way. Not just the Welcome Back to Trench, because I think I can place that again as a reintroduction. That makes sense. But in terms of starting off what ends up being a very uncertain and, dare I say it, insecure album with this song of bravado and of establishing that like yourself as this force and this presence, it's a strange choice. And I haven't quite figured out why that decision was made, other than just to bring back anyone who might have been turned off by the scaled and icy sound, just right off the bat, get that out of the way. It's an interesting choice as a single, as an album leadoff, but there is an aspect of it that I think I missed on the first listen, which is that the lyric that jumped out to us right away was just the Welcome Back to Trench. And yet I think it's what comes after that, as other fans have pointed out, might be more important, which is that reprise of Bandito. That idea of, I created this world to feel some control. I'll destroy it if I want. And there is definitely an element, as you get into this record, of Tyler consciously destroying the Trench iconography. And I think that it is a sense of moving away from that side of things. As you get into this record, this changes at the end, but I think that could be a big aspect of this song too, of making a conscious effort to move away from the story.
That's interesting because it still leaves me thinking, why lead with this then? Yeah. It's a little, you're digging pretty deep to get to that conclusion.
I am. So I freely acknowledge that.
So I feel like from a casual listener's perspective, or for someone who isn't super into the lore, but they understand that this is connected to the previous albums, it's just kind of confusing. It's why not even lyrically, but production wise, this sounds like nothing else on the album at all. I can.
That is true.
I can point out specific moments and songs here and there that kind of have something similar in terms of the production, but for the most part, it's the introduction to something that ends up pretty jumbled.
I certainly will give you that. And again, this idea of like, why do it this way? And another song that actually makes me ask, why do it this way, is the second track, the second single, Next Semester. I remember certain things. Now this is one that I know you said was one that you were returning to. So why don't you start on this one too. What is it about this one that jumped out to you?
Yeah, so this was definitely my favorite of the 3 singles, just because I did find myself returning to it most. If I got in the car, this was the first thing that I put on. And I love the sound of it. I said to you before that it's very Killers-esque, even with the drum part, with the 16th note hi-hats.
Yeah.
Josh Dunn clearly loves to do that. It's on many places on this album. And
I love it when he does it. I always love a good drum part that fills in all the space.
Right. And I think that it took me a while to appreciate the follow-up to Overcompensate in having those songs back to back. But I do appreciate, as much as we just said that Overcompensate is this introduction to something that's kind of messy, I do like that Next Semester is immediately high energy. I think it would feel odd if it wasn't. I really appreciate the lyrics as well. It's a lot more direct. I enjoy that it's not super lore heavy, I am Clancy, all this sort of stuff, because that's what I liked about Scaled and Icy. I like that those were just songs I could put on whenever, and I feel the same way about Next Semester. I can throw this on as just a fun, sort of punk-inspired jam that it could be entirely disconnected from the album, and I'm okay with that. And as you know, as we talked about last week about the Billie Eilish album, I'm very much an album listener, but if I have specific songs I want to come back to, I got nothing against that, and that's what this is for me.
I have some very personal struggles with this song.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone else is going to have these issues with it, but there are 2 things that have held me back from liking this song. And one of them I didn't even notice until it was pointed out to me. And that is that Paul Meany did a behind the scenes look at this song. And he pointed out that there are no guitars on this song. It's all ukulele run through amp simulators. And as soon as he said that, I was like, that's why it doesn't work. Because I'm sorry, this is me speaking as a guitarist, but also me speaking kind of as a producer. A ukulele, Tyler Joseph has gotten a lot of mileage out of ukuleles in 21 Pilots. But I don't think a ukulele can fill out the frequency range that you need for a punk rock song. It cannot replace the guitar. And it made me wonder, Tyler played guitar all over the last record. Why not bring that back? Why did he think he couldn't do that?
He was shunned.
And I'm worried that that's what happened here, because there's a lot of ukulele on this record that I listen to as a guitarist, and I'm like, you're trying to play something that should be on a guitar, where the frequency would sound so much better if you played it on guitar. And the notion that he might not have done that because he was worried that any connection to Scaled and Icy would make the fan base upset, that makes me sad. That really does. Especially on a song like this where it's so clearly what he was going for and so clearly what the song needed to kick into that gear. It's missing. And I feel like I personally can feel its absence. And it makes it a weird song to get into. But not only that, but there's a weird thing about the delivery too, where this song is supposed to be about this frantic energy of feeling like you need to escape, you need to get out, like you might do something drastic if you don't. I'm not getting that out of Tyler's performance here, especially in the verses, where it's just, stand up straight now, might break down, can you da 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 da. Like, I'm sorry, he sounds like he's in the DMV. I don't want to be here. Yeah, me neither, man. It's boring in here. There's a step that this song just cannot kick into for me. And it bugs me because In Here Somewhere is a great song. When you get to those drum parts where Josh is really going and into high gear and getting all those 16th notes, it's there. But it's not there the whole way through for me. And that's something that I think comes back a lot on this record, is feeling like there was a potential here there is a great finished song somewhere in here, and it just didn't get finished. And that's something that has really held me back on this record. And we'll get into more of that. In fact, we'll get into more of that on the next song. I mean, any rebuttal to me on Next Semester, I will happily take any rebuttal on that.
No, I mean, I personally don't think that it feels like something's missing. I feel that way plenty of times on other songs on this album. So I feel the need to maybe be overly positive about this one for where I'm gonna go later. The thing you said though about the ukulele and sort of ditching the guitar because you don't want to have ties to scaled and icy, it feels very much like to me, and we're kind of speaking for them, and I don't want to get too much into that. But
I don't want to do that, absolutely.
But it does feel a little like, hey guys, we're still the band with the ukulele. And that feels like a regression to me. What happened to don't cut all ties from the previous thing. You can take some of that. Again, that's a theme I'm going to return to later. Yeah. But for now, I would disagree. I don't feel like this song is missing something, but boy, oh boy. I'll stop there because...
I don't know if you want to stop there because the next song is Backslide, track 3 and the third single. When you first heard this one, you sent it back to me and was like, I'm not feeling this one.
Yeah. It was funny because we were obviously paying such close attention to how each other felt about each single.
We were, and yes.
After Next Semester and after Overcompensate, while I liked those songs, again, I haven't really had much negative to say up until this point. Yeah. I still was kind of worried. And so I really needed this one to rope me in. I needed, okay, this third single is going to be the one that really makes this make sense. And I felt the complete opposite. I think it's a very, very odd choice, not just as a third single, but as track 3 on the album. I mentioned how Next Semester has this momentum to it that really gets you going after Overcompensate. What a way to kill it in track 3, in my opinion. Like, I appreciate the lyrics. I think you've helped me appreciate it more because initially when I heard it, I had such a visceral reaction to, I wish I didn't make Saturday. And as someone who's like one of my top 21 Pilots songs is Saturday, I really had a hard time looking past that. But as a song, and I'm going to say this multiple times, it does not work for me. And I think the reason why is when we break into that chorus, and I like the chorus, I like the chorus melody, I think you can easily sing along to it, but I don't feel it. I really do not feel it. And I think one of the biggest reasons why is, just like you said about Next Semester, this production feels empty, like vacant. There's this drum loop that's there the whole time, and it's like, why are we not getting into this? Why are there not these... You're telling me to feel this big emotional climax, but the song doesn't match that. The drums should be slamming by that last chorus, but it's not. It's still just this same sort of trip hop thing. And I know 21 Pilots is known for blending different genres and all these sorts of things. I don't think it works here at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I do want to touch on the lyrics because for me, this was the first of the singles that really got me lyrically. And this is very personal to me, and I think there's a lot of different ways to interpret this song, and people have interpreted it in plenty of different ways. But for me, looking at it as from the perspective of a creator and as a songwriter, the idea of feeling like you've made a mistake and that you're moving backwards and that you don't want to start over again, that you're losing the people that matter most to you creatively. That really hits home for me. Like, we as a band made a big change in our image and our direction earlier this year, and I was worried about these same exact things of like, I don't want to have to start over at ground zero again. I don't want to have to rebuild our fan base. Yeah. And hearing a song like this say all of that so perfectly, that really mattered to me, and that really meant a lot to me to hear that. And that's one of the things I love about 21 Pilots, is just how relatable the lyrics can be to my own experience. I will agree that the song does feel very empty, and it feels like I know that it needed to happen this early in the story, because this mindset that Tyler's in, of questioning his creativity, of the direction of his music, of how loyal his audience is to him, is incredibly important throughout this record. And I know that it needs to be introduced early on. But this does feel like a deep cut of something that should have come a lot later, more towards the middle or the end of the record, and not right away at the beginning, where, like you said, we've built up so much momentum and we've hit this song. And I can make a case for that being intentional, but I can't deny that in practice, it is a strange way to kick off, just to end really the first fourth of the record, where we've had so much buildup and then we hit this very slow, very empty song. It's like, why do it this way?
Yeah, to me, Backslide gives track 8 energy. And I was watching the live stream last night, and Tyler was saying how specific songs give him specific track numbers. And throughout almost this whole album, I'm thinking we are on a different page, because this is not how I would have organized this. And that may sound like a small issue, and maybe it is. Maybe I shouldn't worry too much about the track order, but for a band that is so album driven, and this is supposed to be this conceptual thing, and I felt very good about Trench's flow and Scaled and Icy and Blurry Face and all those sorts of things. I feel like who thought that this made sense? I don't know. It's that word of baffling. Right.
Why do it this way?
Right.
But after Backslide, we get into the first new song, the first non-single on the record, and this is Midwest Indigo. And this is one that you and I had a lot of high expectations for. We are both from the Midwest, and I think 21 Pilots captures a very Midwest energy for us. They've always had this very certain kind of suburban Midwest feel to them in their music. It's tough to quantify that, but I've always felt it personally. And to see this song title come up, there was a lot of possibilities. And this is certainly not what I was expecting. And I'm curious to know what you ended up thinking about Midwest Indigo.
Reaching out on my way home.
It's interesting because I think this has a more similar vibe to Next Semester. It's got these punky drums, and again, that's why I feel that Backslide is an odd placement. But it also has this MGMT synth poppy thing going on.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people make that reference.
Yeah. And I'm in the same position as you. For a song called Midwest Indigo, maybe I set the bar too high, but Tyler mentioned on the live stream that this was a letter to Ohio and Columbus specifically. And as a Columbus, Ohio native, I get it, but I feel kind of the same way I did about Backslide. I think I'm going to end up sounding a bit like a broken record, but this song, with the way you felt about Next Semester, is really how I feel here in the emptiness of the production. The chorus, for example, sounds so hollow to me. There's this like staccato piano and drums, but there's really not that much to it. There's not many melodic instruments going on in the chorus, and I really don't care for the hook all that much. And that's an odd complaint for me to have for a 21 Pilots song, because I think Tyler writes great hooks.
He does.
There's so many songs I could go to for that, but especially on Scaled and Icy, that's why I was drawn to that, is so much of that stuck in my head. And I couldn't even tell you how the song goes right now, and I've heard this album 5+ times at this point, and that's an issue for me. I mentioned to you before that regardless of lyrically what something is trying to convey, regardless of this being some letter to Ohio, if it doesn't hit me as a song, I'm pretty much checked out. And this song does not hit me in any way. And I think that I should feel differently about it. I should feel like I'm more connected to it, but I really don't. I think that Hometown from Blurryface actually has a similar case. Hometown is one of my least favorites off of Blurryface, and same reason. I appreciate the sentiment, but as a song, that one never hooked me. But I'm curious what you think of this one because, like you said, we both came in with those high expectations.
Well, I'm glad we have a difference of opinion here because I actually like this one quite a bit. It's I wouldn't say it's my favorite on the record, and it certainly wasn't what I was expecting. But I like a lot of the synth choices here. I like a lot of the synth layering. You mentioned how you don't really like the hook. I actually think that's a pretty nice melody. That da 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 da. I like that a lot. That really works.
Thanks
for me.
Reminding me how it goes.
And, yeah. And for me, I also like the lyrics on this. It took me a second to kind of warm up to them, but I think that this song pairs really well with a song that comes later in the album that is also one of my favorites on the album. And I think that this is a perspective from a young person in this Tyler's situation and of how he's looking around and he doesn't feel at home. He wants things to move faster. Like there are those kind of post choruses where he's like, where are you guys? Like, don't you realize we're short on time? And they're like, chill out, man. We're fine. Like, what are you so rushed about? And I can relate to that personally. I feel that way about a lot of things. I get very in my head about like, oh, this has to be great. This has to be like, where is everybody? Come on now. So I can relate to it. There's also that line where he talks about how he wanted to speak to a counselor, but they canceled on him. Like he's not being taken seriously. And I feel like that's what this song is about, where he just feels like he's in a place where no one's taking him seriously. And I can feel that. That's a sentiment that I can get into. And I like how the production's layered. I think the drums are a little basic. Like it's missing it's missing an element. There's a feeling of unfinishedness to this one too. There's something missing in terms of how it ends, where it builds to. But I do like the bones of this one. I can get into this one.
That is surprising to me because compared to Next Semester, this feels so much more empty to me.
Really?
So
I think maybe just because Next Semester is going for a certain sound and I feel like they didn't get to that sound. This one's with a much more synthy sound. I feel like it's more in Tyler's wheelhouse, and I think he got there a little better, at least for me.
I mean, I'm glad that you like this one more than I do because I think we had the same expectations going in. But yeah. That takes us to Routines in the Night. I'm very curious about this one because I have had quite the journey with this song, but okay. I want to know your thoughts.
My first thing that I noticed about this song is that this is new for 21 Pilots. There's an outside songwriter on this song.
I did not know that.
This is the first major label 21 Pilots song that is not written by Tyler Joseph or Paul Meany. There is Jake Torrey on this. And I had to do a little bit of digging to find out who this guy was. He is a pop songwriter who has written for people like Charlie Puth and for John Legend and a bunch of different folks like Marshmello, Youngblood, all of these people. So this guy is an industry guy. And I think you can really tell that on this song because this song, to me, is very far from what I would expect from 21 Pilots. And I feel really weird saying this is probably my favorite song on the album.
Okay.
I really like this. It's got a certain Post Malone, Charlie Puth mashup kind of thing going on here. But I love the melody. The melody feels very mathematically designed to get in my head. And as a songwriter, I'm really drawn to stuff like that, where I can really try to peel back the mechanics of how this works, how these words sit in a phrase together. And that walk the layout into some doors have stay out. That's a great little merging of word and melody. How those rhymes hit right on the accent notes of the melody. That really gets stuck in my head. I think that this is the catchiest song on the record. I am stunned that this wasn't a single.
I feel the same way about it not being a single. That seems like a crazy choice not to. I'm glad you feel that way about the song, because of any song on this whole album, it has grown on me the most from when I first heard it. Because when I first heard it, I was worried. I was in the listening party in Columbus, for reference, at the record store. And at this point, I feel like I had already been let down by Midwest Indigo, and Backslide made me worry about this sort of static percussion issue that I tend to have, where it's basically just a loop.
You are the drummer, we must say. So
Right.
so again, you are very keen on these drum parts.
Yeah, but with more time, I really love this song. I think that it really works here. I think it's one of the only times on this album where that production style really lends itself well to the song. You mentioned that it's kind of out of left field for them, but to me, this is most reminiscent of some of the experimentation they did on Blurry Face. Something like Doubt, for example. And even the music video feels fairly local-esque to me. And
it does. That's true.
I'm on the same page. I wouldn't say that I would immediately pick it out as my favorite, but it's definitely one that I'm going to keep coming back to because that chorus is just irresistible, and it totally makes sense to me. Yeah. If I had to pick out any song that had another writer on it, I would assume that it's this one. So yeah, it definitely makes sense.
There's one element of the lyrics I want to point out, and I really do like the lyrics, but there's a certain thing about this album. There's a big theme on this record of really reevaluating what the constants in your life are and realizing that people come and go. And yet there's a sad truth in the matter on this song where Tyler's like, the one thing that doesn't go is his depression. Like, it's always there. And in an era, in a season where you don't know what you can rely on, there's this kind of sad comfort in realizing that no matter where you go, that's never going away. And that's something that we're going to talk about in one of our own songs coming up next month. But to hear it echoed back in this song, I thought that was a really good bit of insight, and again, something very relatable, which is what I go for in 21 Pilots. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of this song. It is definitely the one I'm going to return to the most from this album, and I'm glad it grew on you as well.
Here, the lyrics and the style of the song, I think, really connect. And since the song grabs me, I can really appreciate the lyrics a lot more. And so they kind of go hand in hand. You mentioned this is one of your favorites. Vignette, let me tell you, that is the first time when I was hearing this album for the first time where I was like, oh, thank goodness. I'm not completely out of the woods, because this is probably my second favorite song on the album. I'll get into my actual favorite later. But I think that this is a perfect blend of Trench. Actually, I think this is the only one that, besides Overcompensate, that really reminds me of Trench, just in the way the drums sound even. But then it also, with this heavy piano rock kind of thing going on, reminds me of Vessel in a way. And when I was listening to this record for the first time and my brother was standing next to me, when that first chorus kicked in and there's the falsetto from Tyler, we both looked at each other like, okay, good. we're feeling okay now. And because again, at the time I wasn't really feeling Routines in the Night. Since then, I'm glad that I've come to my senses. I really love this song. I love the hook. I love Josh's drums. This one really feels like a Josh Dunn drum part to me. And for all of my complaints on other songs about him feeling pretty sidelined, this is one of the ones where he really gets to show off. And I can hear Paul Meany all over this. It actually has a very early Mute Math feel. I know you're not super familiar with their stuff, but this is the most Mute Math sounding 21 Pilots song they've ever made. And that little synth solo is awesome.
No, I'm glad to hear that. I call that little synth solo the Bill Wirtz synth. That was my connection. Mm-hmm. You know, I like this one. I like this one a lot too. I think that this is, I don't necessarily love it as much as you do. I'm not sold on Tyler's falsetto. I don't know how much force he has in that register, and to kind of hear him trying to match the power of all those drums and strings, it hits a little off to me, but I love a lot of the lyrical details, kind of the horror movie vibe of this, of like going out in the woods and like coming back attacked by monsters. That's another thing that we are writing about in our own music right now. So to kind of see that connection is great too. There's a lot of things that came to mind here. Another one of my references that I kind of pulled out here, and this is one for to look up for all those watching. There was a web comic that I was reading back in the mid 2010s called Brood Hollow by Chris Straub, and this song captures that comic's vibe perfectly. So that was my connection point for this one. I like how maximalist this one is too. There's just so much crammed in here. They just threw every production trick they could into this one. And I think that more than anything is what won me over on this. It's just, there's so much going on here that I can't not find something to like about it. This 3-song stretch from Midwest, Routines, and Vignette is probably my favorite 3-song stretch on the album. And I think they're all very different songs, and I think they all do, at least for me, what they set out to do very well.
Say enough, did I let it know.
I think you should call it a 4-song stretch because
you like the Craving. Okay.
I don't just like the Craving; it is my favorite song on this album.
Wow, that's impressive.
Thanks. I obviously heard the album version first, and it's a landslide compared to the single version. I really don't care for the single version at all, which is crazy to me, that just different production choices and the vibe of the song, I feel totally differently about the single version than I do Jenna's version. And you mentioned that Vignette has this maximalist approach, and I love that the Craving, at least in this version, is super minimalistic. There's just the ukulele, Tyler, that's pretty much it. And the single version has this more folk pop mass appeal. You've got the drums in it. It's very clearly trying to go with the Noah Kahan-esque style. And to me, it really loses its heart. And I'm pretty sure Tyler had 2 entirely separate vocal tracks because...
oh, yes, absolutely.
Because I think this is his best vocal performance ever. Not in terms of notes he's hitting or anything like that, but it's so emotive. And it's the only time standing in the record store hearing this album for the first time where I really felt like the album was hitting me at an emotional core, and everybody was silent in the store. And for the Billie Eilish album last week, I obviously went to the movie theater, and it was this crazy experience. And to be honest, this record store listening party where we were all jammed in, especially in Columbus, was not an ideal first listen.
Very different experience than the theater.
But this was the one where I felt like standing in that room with hundreds of other people, just soaking it in, was a great way to hear it for the first time. And I love the chorus melody. I love it so much. The song is so simple, and that's exactly what it needed to be. I think I talk a lot about the flow of the track list, and I think Vignette into the Craving is an excellent decision. And I also think it's a great thing to have as this midpoint in the album. I'd go as far as to say that the Craving is one of my favorite 21 Pilots songs. I think it's the best song that Tyler has written for Jenna of the Smithereens formidable saga that's happened. I think this is easily the best because it just cuts right to it. There's nothing else. There's no more distractions. It's just him laying his heart out on the song, and I just love it. So I think that surprised me that something like this would be my favorite, but it's a nice surprise.
Nice. I will say I do disagree that it's the best Jenna song because Tear in My Heart exists. And there's no getting around Tear in My Heart for me.
I still would argue that this is better.
Wow.
I feel very strongly about this. Yeah.
This is one for me where, again, the guitarist in me was like, play guitar on this, Tyler. This ukulele is just not cutting it for me. I need something with more body to it if you're going to go this singer-songwriter balladeer route. And I was missing that in it. It's a very good song. The melody is great. I will say it feels very abbreviated to me. Like, I think there is something to be said for its directness and its simplicity. But again, I feel like if you want to play in this Ed Sheeran, Noah Kahan singer-songwriter sandbox, it's missing some detail to me. And I know Tyler can write with personal detail. I feel like there is just, these verses are so short, they're to the point, but I just feel like this could have been a little bit more. Just a little bit more, maybe some strings in the production, some more detail in the writing. It's not quite there for me. That's just me.
Interesting. Okay. It's funny because what solidified my opinion is seeing the music video for Jenna's version. I love that.
It is very cute.
Yeah. And there was no doubt in my mind after I saw that. I'm like, yeah, this is easily my favorite song. But we move on to what I would say is probably the most controversial song on this album. I like the music video a lot. As a Columbus native, as I've said before, seeing different spots that they went to and things that I could instantly recognize, I thought that was a lot of fun. But that's where my positives end, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I hate the song. I think it's the worst 21 Pilots song ever.
Ever.
And
yes, it's terrible.
And glad we're on the same page.
Alex, this song makes me mad. Here's the thing. I don't have any problem with artists writing songs about their lifestyles or how rich and successful they are. But you basically have three ways that you can do this. You can either go the I'm having the time of my life route, the Bruno Mars Young Gravy route. You can go the I'm untouchably opulent route, the Beyonce, Ariana Grande, and also Bruno Mars route. Or you could go the I'm rich and miserable route, the Drake route. And I feel like this song tries to kind of do all three. Like, it's trying to be fun and funny. It's also trying to be sincerely opulent, but it's also kind of trying to have this ironic, like, oh, you don't really think I would talk about myself this way, do you? Kind of attitude to it. But it's no fun. The production does not sound opulent or luxurious at all. It sounds cheap and stuffy, and just the falsetto melody is so limp. And it's like, I can try to picture this as intentional. I can try to say, like, okay, he's trying to be like ironic here. This is, why else would he talk about having a Napoleon complex or drinking Capri Sun? There's got to be some level of irony here. But if there is,
but the problem is it's not
no fun.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say it. The problem is that it's not fun or funny. And
it's not. What the heck is that line about the proctologist? Like, what are you talking about, Tyler?
You could say all you want that, like, oh, he's just like having fun. It's honestly the comparison I could draw most easily is when Logic tries to do his flexing and his, talking about how much money he has. And it's so awkward because you can tell.
That's the word. It's awkward.
Yeah.
It's amateur. It's awkward. It's terrible. The notion when they were doing the live stream and Tyler said that, I mean, he knows how this song comes across. He knows. When he said this in the live stream about how, like, oh, this is like us exploring a new territory and using this as a jump off point. It's like, what new territory could you possibly be trying to explore? This man's greatest strength is his relatability and his populism. This is the furthest from that.
Yeah.
And it makes me mad. It makes me mad. I hate this song with every fiber of my being.
It's so funny because in that live stream, he said, we wanted to put it smack dab in the record just to show that we didn't want to be cornered, and it gives us the opportunity later on to branch off. awful decision. Like
where? Off of what?
Yeah, I don't know. And coming after the Craving, especially, this heartfelt thing, and then you go into this, it is the biggest slap in the face, and this is going to sound maybe over dramatic, but I don't think it is. I saw a lot of people over this last week saying that this was easily their favorite 21 Pilots album ever. I do not know how you could say that when this song exists. Like,
that's so
it
true.
It completely makes no sense. And it's odd that they're so aware of it. You know, Tyler says this sounds like it shouldn't be on it, but then they did it anyway. Why?
It doesn't make them look good. It does not make them look good.
No.
They chose this song to be on the record.
I don't want to come across as those reviewers or people that are super dramatic in their things, acting like a song is making their ears bleed. But at the same time, I can't lie. Gonna reiterate it again. I think it's their worst. I think the hook is terrible, like you said.
It is.
Just sounds bad. It sounds so really
limp.
bad.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could say, oh, well, the verses are fun, but they're not.
But they're not.
They're pretty terrible too. And the song's over in 2.5 minutes. I don't even want it to be 1 minute. Again, I'm trying not to get too heated about it, but yeah, I'm glad we see eye to eye on this one because
yeah. No, I'm not. Like, I want there to be something redeemable about this. I really do. Like, I want to like every song that I listen to.
Right.
I never want to go into something thinking that it's going to be bad.
Right.
I don't know what to do with this one. It makes, like I said, this makes me upset that they would think that it not only is worthy of being on the album, but that it somehow represents like a new path forward for them. It poisons everything around it. It's that bad.
Yeah. And
okay, I'm sorry. We got to move on from this.
Yeah,
we got to move on from this. I can't keep talking about this song.
Yeah,
Navigating. Please tell me something good about Navigating.
Great thing for me. This one grew on me a lot as well. I mean, I liked it from the start when I heard the album for the first time. It's similar to Next Semester's Energy, maybe Midwest Indigo, Vignette. I think this should have been a single, just like Routines in the Night. I think that should have I think those could have gone together. And maybe that would have set expectations a little easier.
Definitely. Yeah.
And just sort of covered the scope without feeling too all over the place. It's funny that this is the lore-heavy music video. I'll get into this later when we talk about the album as a whole, but I like it as a song. And I like the drum part. There's that fun little break and fill right before the choruses. I think my only gripe with the drums, you mentioned how you always like to fill space. While I like the 16th note approach on Next Semester, I think it's a little too busy here. I think it doesn't need that. I think it's just because it's distracting to me. And I think this chorus would hit harder if the drums were slamming and it wasn't so mathematic in that way, because it feels a little rigid when it's like that. But that's not a huge detractor from the song for me. I still like the chorus a lot. I think it's got a lot of energy to it, and it's one that I could see myself going back to, unlike some others, including the one we had choice words about beforehand.
Navigating is interesting for me because I know this one's going to grow on me. Because I should like this. It's got the big synth melody. It's got the big sing-alongable chorus. It's got that driving drum part and the bass part. I'm having trouble keying into this one, and I'm not quite sure why. I think one of the biggest things is, as a songwriter, trying to cram the word navigating into this chorus is my brain is not accepting it for whatever reason. Just that I'm navigating. Just the way he has to cram all those syllables together to get that word to sit in that space. It just feels a little sloppy to me. I don't quite like it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I completely forgot that that's one of my complaints about it. And
that's really holding it up for me. Like, and I know I'm going to get over that. Like, the rest of the song is good enough that I'm going to get over that. But as for right now, the first time I heard it, I was like, what are you doing here, Tyler? Like, that word does not fit there. It just doesn't fit. I'm sorry.
That's funny you mentioned that because it has started to become less of an issue for me. But when I did go to that listening party, my brother kept pointing out, I do not like the way that sounds. Like, that word just does not fit there. I don't like it. It is very odd. Again, I've moved past it at this point, at least a little bit, even if I think it is an odd choice no matter what. But I'm glad that the song as a whole has grown on me, because I hate to jump the gun, but this is pretty much where positives end for me on this album.
Oh no.
I don't really feel good about much of anything else on this album. And it's because my problems from earlier with something like Backslide, with something like Midwest Indigo, really start to become apparent in these next songs. There's going to be positive things I say, but I want to say that from the jump that I do not feel very strongly about really any other song on this album past this point.
Interesting that you say that. I think I can certainly understand why. I'm not going to lie. Some of these coming up are actually some of my favorites on the album.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm very glad.
And I want to start with Snapback.
Got a bad feeling I'm gonna lose the lead.
I have seen a lot of people say that this is their least favorite on the record. And I think I can understand why. These are my favorite lyrics on the record. They really are. And I think it again goes back to being a fellow creator and feeling like you're slipping and you're losing your edge, or you're losing the people that matter most to you and the audience that matters most to you. But this song has so many lines that really get to me. All that progress lost today. It's a new adaptation. It's a backslide. That idea of you thought you were going in a new direction, but you were moving backwards the whole time. I can feel that. And my favorite line on the record, I've been praying for my elasticity to return. See, I talk about navigating and how I don't like how he squeezes this big word into this tight space. Tyler is very good, I think, at taking words that are not pop friendly and making them pop friendly. You know, all my friends are heathens, or help me polarize, or should you keep it on display or redecorate? These are not words that you would expect to hear in those contexts, but he makes them work. That line about praying for your elasticity to return, that's the line for me on this record where he does that, where he takes this word that should be way too slippery and too weird in the mouth to make into a pop song lyric. And he does it, and it fits great. So I like the song lyrically a lot. I am not a fan of the production. It's very muddied in the vocal mix. There's a lot of weird doubling going on in the vocals that don't quite sit right to me. The drums feel very forward in the mix here. Like, they're just way too forward and too busy for a song this subdued. Again, I go back to, why was it done this way? There is, I think, a really great song in here in Snapback, and it just doesn't feel like it comes out in the way that I was hoping it would. If I was behind the board producing this, I feel like I would make so many different decisions as to how this song would have been done. And it's just so weird for me to hear where it ended up versus where I would go with it. There's just, it's so strange to me.
I'm glad you feel at least positive about the lyrics.
Yeah.
Because Tyler said this is one of his favorites off the album, and he's going to feel the need to defend it.
And I can see why, because this feels like a very personal song to me. Like, maybe the most personal on the record. So I can very much see why he would feel the need to defend it.
And I'm not trying to say anything bad about that, but going to say it again. It is too stagnant and boring for me to care. I think the most sinful thing you can do in a movie or a song is to bore the audience. And I don't feel the song, I don't feel these lyrics, because it's put on the most stale platter of all time. Like you said, I feel like if the song was entirely reconstructed, there is something here. But it's something I've rarely felt about their songs. Even something like Bounce Man on Scaled and Icy, which people don't particularly like. I think it's fine.
I love that song. I love that song.
At least it's fun. Like, at least it's memorable.
It's very fun.
And
it's great. I love that song.
I could say, really the only other boring song I can maybe pull from, and I think you'll feel some type of way about this, is Cut My Lip off of Trench. I just think that song drones on so much.
I agree.
But yeah, this one did not do it for me.
Okay. That's interesting because I think this song, Snapback, paired with the next song, Oldies Station, is really what made me get the record.
You don't quite mind how long.
Oldies Station is probably my second favorite song on the record.
Oh, man.
And I don't know, man. There is always a 21 Pilots song on every record that feels like it finds me right where I need it. And maybe I'm just at the right age where this is really getting to me. But this idea of, like, as you get older, you kind of settle into this routine where this idea of your life being this endless struggle for survival doesn't really ring true anymore. This idea of fighting bishops in a fictional town, it doesn't ring true anymore. And I feel like that's what Tyler's saying on this. Like, you know, he has a dance recital to go to. He's lost people close to him. He's had to reevaluate how the world works in so many ways. And he's come out with a different perspective. And that's what this is about, I think, to me. The idea of your favorite song being on the Oldies Station. Like, you're not hip and relevant anymore. Time has moved on. And I think this song does a great job of capturing that, of just feeling like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not the hot thing anymore, but I got to push on through. I got people depending on me. And I have to keep moving. When that darkness comes for you, you push on through. This is to me Shy Away, which I love, by the way. One of my, maybe even my favorite 21 Pilots single. So all those watching Shy Away. This feels like a more tempered, less frantic version of Shy Away. Just kind of not resigned, but just like, well, this is the way things are, and we got to keep going. I don't know, man. This one really does it for me. Like, this one really does it for me.
I'm glad it's one of your favorites. I find it ironic only because when we were in the record store getting ready to hear all these new songs we hadn't heard before, and we were getting through the first three, we were just scrolling through the track list, and my brother pointed to that one, and he's like, this is going to be my favorite song. And I feel like, oh yeah, with that name, it's going to be one of the top ones for me, because I think we had this expectation that it would be more piano driven, which it is, and almost Ben Folds 5-esque.
Okay.
Just like something like Good Day. Those, for some reason, those felt like they would have some sort of tie together just instrumentally. And then we heard the song and we were like, oh.
Wasn't what you were expecting.
No, because part of it was accurate. It is this more piano-driven thing. You could kind of compare that to Vessel in a way. But it starts strong for me. I really like the chord choices in certain spots, and I was thinking to myself, oh yeah, this is gonna break into something cool when the drums kick in. This is gonna be fun. Then the drums come in. And to me, it's like, I couldn't conceive of a more boring part. I hate to put so much weight on that, but I can't help it, because it has the same feeling I had with Snapback, where it's just super stagnant. Again, I really don't want to come at it from just that angle of like, I'm a drummer and I do it differently. I'm coming at it more from the song as a whole and as a production. I think it has less to do with the drums in and of itself, but it's the journey that the song takes you on. It is just a flat line for me. That's what it really boils down to. It doesn't all come down to, I'm not mad at Josh for ruining this song. You made such a boring part, or maybe it was Tyler's idea to have the drum part be this way. I think that speaks more to the song's construction as a whole. And the drums are serving how the song is constructed. I'm not mad at that. But the way the song is constructed is not interesting to me.
Wow, I'm glad we have such differences of opinion on this one. Like if I certainly could hear that. I would say this. You say it's a flat line of a song. I think that's intentional. But from your perspective, as Tyler says in your favorite song, intentions don't mean much.
Thank you for that. Yes, exactly. I don't care if it's a.
All right, we got two more. We got two more to get through here. Let's see here. So this next song, At the Risk of Feeling Dumb. I have seen a surprising amount of people say that this is their favorite song on the record.
Same here.
I don't understand that one personally. Yeah. Here's the thing. Vignette, I complimented for having this maximalist approach to it, where they just threw everything they could at this, so many different flourishes, so many different ideas, and there was bound to be one that stuck. This one feels like they were going the same direction, and I'm just not getting there with it. There's a lot going on in this one. There is a huge dynamic range in this song. And I can see why it's on the record with this idea of like, you never know what your friend's going through. Got to be there for them. It just feels a little slapdash to me. Like this feels like for as much as Tyler says this one went through so many revisions, this sounds like a first draft to me.
Yeah.
It really does. And it's hard to quantify that because like I can tell there is a lot going on here. But the bones of this song just feel very basic in a way that I would not expect from 21 Pilots. Again, it feels half finished, which has been one of my biggest complaints about a lot of the songs I don't like on this record is they don't feel done to me. And this one also doesn't feel done to me.
Yeah. And the thing you said about the maximalist thing, I think my problem with it is that it can't make up its mind of what it is. Because in the first chorus, it's doing the same thing as before, where it has the stagnant drum part that I keep harping on for most of this album. And then it just breaks into the thing. And it's like, well, why are we doing that? I thought this was this song. And if you wanted it to be that way, why isn't it that way all the way through? And this one did grow on me a little. Like it's the one I feel, I guess, most positive about post navigating, but even saying that does not mean that much. But it sort of rehashes the issues we've already had.
It does. Yeah.
I'm glad that people really like this one. I think it does have a little bit of like an emo throwback, almost a little bit of like a My Chemical Romance thing. But I think that the song, just the way it's constructed, does not make sense to me. And the whole drop thing, I think is a little odd.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's he's going for the hook there, and yet it's just not sticking. That hook doesn't grab me.
Yeah, me neither. So I don't want to retread too much on my same points because I feel the same way about this as I do a lot of other songs on the album, but that does take us to Paladin Strait.
Paladin Strait.
Standing on the shore.
I like this one a lot. I really do. And I think that it has a lot to do from a production angle. I like how the pieces fit together. I think this is the only song on the record that is prominently ukulele that I agree with the choice for it to be a ukulele. I love how that little line that he plays at the beginning, it sounds very live. It's got a very folksy feel to it. I love how those upstrokes on the ukulele merge with the very solid drum beat. There's some synths in there that really fill out the space when the second verse comes in. I like how this sounds quite a bit. And I like the chorus too. Like this idea that he's going back into the fray and he'll do it as long as he knows that there's someone waiting for him on the other side. I like that a lot. There's a lot of color in this. I like color in my lyrics. And that's another one of the reasons that I've been a big fan of 21 Pilots is that Tyler always puts a lot of color in his lyrics. And this one feels the most colorful to me on the record. I love the little field recordings of the birds. That gives it a nice atmosphere. Again, to call to attention to one of our own songs, we have a song that came out a couple months ago where we did the same thing with the birds, giving some atmosphere. And it was, again, cool to hear that echoed back on this record. I do have some thoughts about the ending, but I want you to share your thoughts first.
I have nothing actually against this song as a song. But my problem is that at this point in the album, I'm gone. I kind of checked out a while ago. And this being the conclusion to the record, but then it's also sort of a conclusion to like the story. And it's like, I mean, we'll touch on that, but this is definitely the most lore heavy song outside of Overcompensate. But why is it here? We spent the last 11 songs not doing that. So why this feels like, just like I said about the intro, this feels like a conclusion to an album that we didn't get.
No, we didn't get.
I just don't understand it. Like, and because it doesn't really work for me in the context of the album, I'm also probably not going to return to this song. I mean, it's got 2 minutes of silence and then the little outro. And I'm not going to think to myself, oh, I want to hear the outro to that album. It's such an emotional climax in the way that something like Leave the City is. The problem is this is an outro to a thing that I just have already, I've lost interest. And I do want to segue into the ending and the post-credit scene, if you will, of this album. Yeah. How do you feel about this?
See, you mentioned this being the outro to an album that we didn't get. And removing the lore from it, I can see this as the closing to this record. A record where Tyler is saying that, you know, again, he's looking for that assurance in a world that is very different than what he thought it was and has changed a lot, where he is no longer the hot thing, the hit maker that he was 8 years ago. And this song being about being willing to jump in again and do it again, as long as he knows that there's someone waiting for him on the other side, I can see that being kind of like how Blurryface was an album about itself and about the making of itself. Clancy is, I think, a record, again, about the making of itself. And with this being the, all right, we'll do it. We'll do another record as long as we know that there are still people out there waiting for us. So I can hear that being the ending of this record. But the way that this was marketed as the end of an era and the end of a story, and to end with it being so clearly not, again, that word, baffling. Why do it like this? Like, obviously there's more coming, but why do it in this way? Why not just end it here? Like, are they waiting for the tour to start? To like have there be a separate piece of it then? 21 Pilots is an album's artist though. Why not include it all in the album? I don't know how to process that. It's really odd. There's so many theories about what they're going to do next, but none of them make sense to me because it would all just seem like such a weird way to end this story, this album-centric story, with something that isn't part of an album.
Right. Like, the thing is that Leave the City on Trench had basically the same ending. Like, it had this ambiguous thing where I don't know if I'm ever going to leave this thing, and maybe it's just this cycle that repeats, and you get no real closure. So the thought was, oh, I can't wait for the sequel to Trench to know what that is. Okay, and this is it? Like, we're doing this again? Why are we doing this again? Like,
yeah,
I'm so at a point where I am so uninvested in the story that I don't care that this isn't the end. I feel like this should have been the end. I don't want more of it. Like, I personally think it's time to move on. I think it's holding them back too much because they're trying to do these other things. They're trying to do Lavish or just have songs exist on their own, but they still feel confined to this thing. Like you said, Tyler lyrically seems like he wants to move on from it, but then why is it this cliffhanger of, oh, just wait until you hear the next one? That's the real finale. If it's not in the form of an album and we're waiting for this music video to be the final battle, that's what some theories have been, because he said in the interview that that's the case. Why is that not right now? Like you said, it's baffling to me. I don't know why it was marketed so heavily as this thing.
Yes.
The expectations that I had going into this, even as someone who wasn't super into the lore or someone who didn't study it, but you start with Overcompensate and you do this Clancy video laying it all out. and then you just end up having this confusing ending that nobody's going to care about following
cliffhanger.
anyways.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
There was so much going into this record that suggested that this was going to be the final thing, and then for it to just not be the final thing is weird. And I think we talk a lot about how the lore doesn't really do it for us. And I go back to something that you told me, that your brother, who I feel like is the real unsung hero of this discussion. I wish he had been here. I feel like he would have had a lot to say about this.
Yes.
It's something that you told me that he said to you when this whole cycle was starting, and you were telling him like, oh, it's all this Clancy and the lore. And he said to you, well, is the music good? And like, that's at the end of the day, that's what matters, is the music good? And I feel like there are songs on this record that I do like quite a bit at that. But there has never been a 21 Pilots record that has felt more half-hearted and half-finished to me. That after all this buildup and all this time, this is what we're left with. It puts a weird taste in my mouth. And you told me this when we were talking earlier about how it's weird to feel this way about an artist that is so influential and so inspirational to you, to feel like this is the dud when everyone else is out here praising this as like a return to form and the best record they've ever made. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys are hearing. Like, I just don't hear it here.
I told you this before. Every time I finish the album, I'm left with, is that it? It is the most underwhelmed, I would say, I've ever been. I don't want to say ever been, but in recent years, from one of my favorite artists, just in general, as songs and as an album conceptually, it's just a huge letdown. And I'm not coming at this, obviously, we're not coming at this at an angle where we're, bashing this and 21 Pilots suck, this is whatever. No, we're just heavily invested fans, but also people that are creatively inspired by them in so many different ways that it hurts a little more.
It does.
Maybe besides Lavish, I don't hate anything on here. I don't think I've
that's the only one I hate too. And even beyond that though, I feel like the more I hear it, the more I can understand what the intention was with this record. But again, I think it is so funny that one of the lines on this record is intentions don't mean much, because I feel like there was a lot of intention here and just not a lot of follow through.
Yeah. I think if you have to dig that deep to find the intention,
yes,
and the songs aren't hitting on their own, then what does it matter? What intentions don't mean much in this case, because like you said, the execution just isn't there. And it's weird for them to be so self-aware of the fact that, people won't like this song. That
is so odd to me too. How much they seem to be aware of this.
Yeah, if
you guys were aware of this, then just make a better album.
Yeah, don't come out and say, oh, this is going to be people's least favorite. This is one I'm going to have to defend. This is that. It's like, okay, well then, like, why is it this way then?
This record feels very much inspired by the quote-unquote failure of Scaled and Icy to re-correct from that, but without really wanting to.
Yeah.
It feels kind of obligated to do it.
Definitely.
But without really feeling like they wanted to go back in this direction or write like this anyways.
Yeah, it feels like a necessary apology that you don't feel you should have given. Because I think that's why there's these things here and there. Oh, don't worry, this is a lore thing. Don't worry, we still have the ukulele. Don't worry, it's Welcome Back to Trench and all these different things. But then the songs themselves are like these underwhelming, sort of half-baked pop songs and whatever else. And it's like, make up your mind. I thought that if it's going to be this big follow-up and this sort of course correction, I want you to feel inspired to do that. Not like you feel forced to. This feels very forced.
I want to go all the way back to Overcompensate to finish this out here. Because when I first saw that video, I was really confused. I was like, wait, to get to the end and see that, wait, it's not Tyler, but he was there the whole time. And he's controlling the guy and what? And I heard this record, and I think for me, that clicked for me. Because I feel like never before has 21 Pilots been so eager to step away. And this is what this record feels like to me, where it's like Tyler will be like, oh yeah, the music's still out there. It'll still inspire. It'll do its thing. But we want to step back. We don't want to be in the fray anymore. And I feel like this record is very much that, which makes it all the odder that it ends on this cliffhanger. Because if this had ended with a finale, I would have been like, great job, guys. You did the thing. You had the arc. You stuck the landing. And if you want to say goodbye now, I would understand it. I would be fine with it. But no, we can't have that moment of finality. We have to keep going for whatever reason. I can't come to a conclusion on this, for one, because I don't feel like we were given a conclusion.
Yeah.
But also because it's just like, I don't want this to be the last thing I say about a band that I love so much. Yeah. I don't want this to be the note to go out on from a project that I really, really, really wanted to like as much as I liked the last one. We could hash this over, but I don't know what else to say about it. Like, I get it. I think I get it. But there's so many things about it that just rub me so wrong.
I wish I could end this and be like feeling great about it, but I'm just kind of underwhelmed. I have one more question for you. What would you want next? If this is a segue to the next thing, what would you want?
I want something that feels genuine. Like something that feels like they put all of their time and effort in and truly wanted to share it with us. And whether that is a deluxe edition or a one last song or something in conjunction with the tour, whatever it is, I don't want it to feel half finished or half-hearted. I want it to be something that feels like it really sums up how much work this band has done throughout the years. Guys, we didn't really like this one. We hope though that you did, because like I said, I never want to go into a record expecting it to be bad. I want to like everything that I choose to listen to and that I seek out. So we hope that if you sought this record out, that it hit home to you. And we would love to hear all of your rebuttals to everything that we said, please, in the comments. And until next time, though, we thank you a lot for listening to us, and we hope to see you again soon. Peace.